The truth occurs. The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. Well, the Occupy Wall Street protests have taken a tragic turn. Why did police officer fire gas canister into crowd trying to help injured Iraq veteran? Protesters take to the streets of New York and Oakland in solidarity after Marine was left in critical condition. On Tuesday, ex-Marine Scott Olsen, who's only 24, was hit in the head and badly wounded by a police gas canister that was shot into the protesting crowd in Oakland, California. And in this article, they have a picture of Scott being taken away after he was wounded. You can see the video of what happened here. Marine vet wounded, tear gas and flashbang grenades thrown in downtown Oakland. This is absolutely tragic. I mean, these people are just trying to stand up against corporate greed and peacefully voice their discontent, and the police are acting like absolute thugs. You know, and as a mother myself, I look at this young man and I just think, you know, how does his mother feel? You know, how do we all feel to see a beautiful young man, and not just a young man, but a veteran, a guy who put his life on the line to fight for his country. I mean, I know that the wars are based on lies and that they're wars of aggression and imperialism, but the soldiers going into these wars are just trying to do the right thing. A lot of times they have no idea what they're getting into. And this brave young man who went to Iraq and fought for his country comes home, tries to stand up against corporate greed in a peaceful protest, and gets shot in the head with a tear gas canister. This is a sad day for America. Now, understandably, Marines all over the world are outraged by this. And not only Marines, of course, but everyone else, especially the people involved in these protests. In this article from the New York Times, they mentioned that some 3,000 people gathered peaceably on Wednesday night debating the merits of calling a general strike in Oakland next week, echoing calls from some Occupy supporters for a national strike. Now, personally, I think that this has gone to the point where standing around with signs, I mean, it is a good thing to do. You're going to wake up other people, you're voicing your discontent, but personally, I think this needs to go a little further with the pressure tactics, and I've been saying, you know, for a while that maybe strikes are what will really be needed to get the message across. Well, in addition to debating whether they should have strikes, the Occupy protesters held a vigil for Scott on Thursday night. Organizer Sebring Frainer said, "We renewed our vow of nonviolence." I think that, you know, nonviolence is, of course, the way to go. I mean, you don't want this to turn into something like what happened in London. You know, if you start to bring violence into it, all these, you know, half asleep zombies wanting their iPods are going to smash windows, and the whole thing's just going to blow up in your face. So I agree that nonviolence is the way to go. Now, the Washington Post reports that Iraq veteran Scott Olsen is now in fair condition. Well, thank God, and I really hope that he makes a full recovery, and I hope that nothing like this happens again. You know, the police really were acting like thugs. You can see in this video, Oakland policeman throws flash grenade into crowd trying to help injured protester. The police throwing grenades, flash grenades, directly into the group of people that are trying to help this injured veteran. I mean, they're peaceful. They're trying to help someone who's been injured, and the police were shooting these canisters at them like they were bullets. I'm seriously wondering whether this shot will be the shot heard around the world for the Occupy movement. Now, as I said, I am against the idea of violence. I just know that it would absolutely blow up in everyone's face. But something like this happens, you know, tensions are high already, and then an innocent man like this gets wounded so brutally. And this is sparking so much outrage that I have to wonder whether this will not cause things to escalate. You know, a while back when I saw the footage of the hundreds of people being herded onto the Brooklyn Bridge by a handful of cops, I, like a lot of people, kind of wondered, why are they letting themselves be held back like that? I mean, can't they just keep walking past the cops? Or would this escalate into massive violence? You know, that you want to keep things peaceful, but at the same time, in a way, with the way the cops are acting and the way the people are responding, it's just kind of giving the message that it's okay for the cops to act like that, and it's not okay. And I don't have any solutions, but I have the feeling that something more needs to be done, whether it's strikes to really hammer the message home, or whether it's people just peacefully refusing to follow police orders because, like Shamar Thomas said, why are you acting like this? This is not a war zone. So again, I just hope that Scott Olsen makes a full recovery. And I also hope that this doesn't turn into something like what happened with the UK riots, because as it is, I'm worried about how the New World Order is going to use these protests to further their own agenda. And if you think I'm being paranoid, just this week it was reported on CNBC, Vatican calls for Central World Bank to be set up. They say here that on Monday, the Vatican called for the establishment of a, quote, global public authority and a Central World Bank to rule over financial institutions that have become outdated and often ineffective in dealing fairly with crises. You see what I mean? They can take this and say, well, what we need is more centralization, more global government, and a central world bank, which is absolutely not the solution to the problem. But, I don't trust the powers that be, of course, and I figure that they'll try to twist this to their advantage. But people who are part of this movement need to speak out against things like this, centralization, globalization, one world bank, one world currency, because it's not the solution. So, I'm a bit worried about this in general, but at the same time, I share the same concerns that these protesters have, and I think if naturally they're going to go out into the streets and protest. I mean, I've done it many times myself. I just hope that something good comes out of this, and I think that at this point, if they want something good to come out of it, they're going to have to put some more pressure tactics on, but peacefully, and avoid violence. And I just really hope this doesn't turn into riots. So, well, we'll see what happens. And thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.